So let me give you a brief quote from Archbishop Lefebvre that I think will put this COVID-19 crisis in perspective as it relates to access to Holy Mass. This is what constitutes our opposition to present-day Rome, and that is why we cannot agree. It is not firstly the question of the Mass, for the Mass is just one of the consequences of the fact that they wanted to become closer to Protestantism. He goes on to say the real fundamental conflict is the reign of our Lord Jesus Christ. St. Paul tells us our Lord came to reign. They say no, and we say yes, with all the popes. Sure, access to Holy Mass, access to the sacraments, that is the issue before our eyes. But the even greater issue, overarching this problem, is the reign of Christ the King, its direct consequence, which is the unique freedom of the Holy Catholic Church to operate without any restraint from the civil authority in carrying out her mission. And it seems to me that the Society of St. Pius X, of all of the priestly societies or groups on the planet today, should be the one standing up to make the case that the Holy Catholic Church is eminently free. And she alone can decide how and whether or not to restrict access to Mass and the sacraments. Our ecclesial leaders, they do have the authority to make that decision. It's been done before. During the Spanish flu, we had archbishops in various places limiting access to Holy Mass because they believed that that was the best prudential decision that they could make on behalf of their faithful. It's a heavy burden to make that kind of decision, one that I'm sure is not made lightly. And so it's a burden that you and I don't have. More to the point, it's a burden that doesn't rest with the civil authority. In fact, they have no right and no authority whatsoever to tell the Holy Catholic Church when and where it can carry out its mission and how to do so. No authority. And to be extra clear here, the civic authority, according to Catholic doctrine, does have the authority to tell the heretics, to tell the Muslims, to tell the Jews, to tell the Buddhists how they are to operate in public. Putting restrictions on them is, in some instances, a duty that the state has. And it certainly does have the authority to do that. But when it comes to the Holy Catholic Church, they have no authority whatsoever. No one is really standing up and making that point. Rather, the behavior of churchmen, and I'm speaking specifically of the leaders of the Society of St. Pius X, are giving those who know no better every reason to conclude that the church is a society that operates within the state and under the authority of the state. And nothing could be further from the truth. And if you put any stock in Archbishop Lefebvre's framing of the problem at hand today in the post-conciliar era, then you have to realize this is a dangerous situation. So in addition to writing these articles, I've undertaken to address a letter to Father Pagliarani as the Superior General of the SSPX, and I've been assured by contacts that I have within the society leadership here in the United States that that letter has been forwarded to Father Pagliarani. My hope being that the society will stand up, Father Pagliarani in particular, to set the record straight as to who has authority over the Holy Catholic Church and who does not, more importantly. Because I honestly believe we're going to come to regret this day when those who should have stood up and made it plain who has authority over matters pertaining to the Church's mission handed it to the government as if it was theirs to give, that we're going to come to regret it deeply. A precedent's being set here that we're going to regret having set. So I wrote this letter to Father Pagliarani begging his intervention in this matter, where the sovereignty of the church is being relinquished, in a sense, to the authority of the state. And I provided the one example to him that I think is among the most glaring. So the British Prime Minister on March 23rd issued an order to the nation that said, quote, "We will stop all social events, including weddings, baptisms, and other ceremonies, but excluding funerals." I'm going to stop there for a minute. Imagine the audacity of this guy. They're going to stop all baptisms? Who do they think they are? I mean, and this is something that our Lord mentioned specifically in the divine commission that he gave to his church. Go, baptize the nations. And now this man's going to take it upon himself to say we're going to stop all baptisms? Clearly, he's overstepped his bounds. His decree also states, if you don't follow the rules, the police will have the powers to enforce them, including through fines and dispersing gatherings. In response to this unlawful edict of the state, Father Robert Bruciani, who he is the superior of Great Britain for the Society of St. Pius X, he dispatched a letter to the Society faithful that reads in part, get this, quote, an announcement this evening by the British Prime Minister has left us with no choice but to cancel all public religious ceremonies. We are able to tend to the sick and the dying within the government restrictions, end quote. Now, folks, if you know anything about traditional, immutable Catholic doctrine concerning the freedom of the Holy Catholic Church and her singular jurisdiction over these matters, you know that that is a gravely erroneous reaction. It's terribly deficient. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail about how we know that. You can click on the links that I'm going to provide, and you'll find what the popes had taught previously. And you'll understand that Father Bruciani's response is eminently un-Catholic. I'm going to share with you another quote from Archbishop Lefebvre, one that I also shared with Father Pagliarani in this letter, even though he knows it better than I do. Archbishop Lefebvre said in October of 1989 in a sermon that he was delivering in Dublin, Ireland, quote, but you know, now in our time, many refuse to acknowledge the kingship of Jesus Christ. They are opposed to the principle of the kingship of Christ. We need to do everything possible to extend this kingdom of Christ in our souls, in our bodies, in our families, in our countries, end quote. Now, here we are, and we have to say that it's not so much the case that many refuse the kingship of Christ. Many, even within the society, people who have been formed in their faith in a society chapel for a decade or more, they don't know the principle of the kingship of Christ. They have no idea what it means to establish it in their country. And it's for this reason that it's incredibly important to stand up and make the point, not so much to educate the state, which is important, but to educate individuals who genuinely and deeply and sincerely want to know Catholic tradition. They're being misled today, and that's just not acceptable. And so in this letter, I took it upon myself, humbly, hopefully, without overstepping my bounds, to suggest to Father Pagliarani that he would do well to issue a statement on behalf of the Society of St. Pius X, and truly on behalf of Christ the King and his sovereignty, which is expressed in the freedom of the Church, that would sound something like this. The state, the civil power, has no authority whatsoever to place restrictions upon the Holy Roman Catholic Church in the exercise of her salvific mission, a mission that was given to her by Christ the King. This includes such things as the offering of public mass and the administration of the sacraments. Those who exercise ecclesial power are at times, however, required to apply their exclusive jurisdiction in such matters by making the prudential yet painful decision to temporarily suspend public mass for the protection of the faithful in their care. It is in this spirit, and with unwavering devotion to the social kingship of our Lord Jesus Christ, that the Society of St. Pius X, in light of the dangers posed by COVID-19, has undertaken such measures in certain places. Now, folks, I think that's a very reasonable way for the society to set the record straight as to who has authority in these matters. It's the Catholic Church, and ultimately it's her founder and head, Christ the King. And it's incredibly important for that point to be made in our day. And it's central to the mission of the society as established by Archbishop Lefebvre. If you believe that, please contact the district superior in your country. Speak to your pastor about it if you're part of the SSPX. If you're someone like me who's not a member but has contacts with those within the society, Encourage them. And bear in mind what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the Society of St. Pius X should stand up to the state, to the civil authorities in various places and say, no, we will not do as you suggested. But it's important that people know who is making the decision and who has jurisdiction over these matters. It's not the state. It is the church, because ultimately it's Christ the King. So with all of that said, please do your part. You may do very well just to sit on this until after Easter. This is a very busy time, both physically and spiritually for these men. So let's give them the space to carry out their duties in caring for our souls, even if it is through their prayers at a distance. With all of that said, I wish all of you a blessed Holy Week next week, and we'll talk again soon.